What's something you should always keep in your car? Camgale 32. Money. I always keep a $20 bill hidden in my car in case I need to buy food, water, gas, pay a toll, etc. and don't have a debit card. The Real Booster Phaeton said, I keep €200, around $240, because you never know. Camgale 32 said, a few years ago, the area I lived in lost power for an extended period of time. Gas was short, so even places with generators didn't have power. Places wouldn't take debit cards because there wasn't the capability. And ATMs were soon empty, and places ran out of small bills to give change when people showed up to buy goods. After that, I started putting all my singles and $5 bills into an envelope in my house at the end of each week. It is only about $300 as I don't use cash that often, so there are usually only a few bills to add to it each week, but I feel much better having it, because as you said, you just never know. 3-Day Rider said, toolkit, jumper cables. Good snow removing tool, if it snows where you live, and de-icer. It's 1020M said, I'm paranoid enough in the wintertime to always have boots, gloves, water and a blanket too. Never Remember ID said, I live in a more urban area but frequently travel into the mountains for work. I throw in a gallon of water, a sleeping bag, and a change of clothes suitable for mountain weather. A firefighter friend has pulled a number of dead bodies out of car accidents where the accidents only killed the car, the people froze to death. One that sticks out is a pair of college-aged girls heading up to meet friends at house in Tahoe. They drove up wearing bikini tops, in winter, and froze to death after sliding off the highway. I don't know if they had warmer clothes they just didn't change into or if a friend had their bags in a separate car, but he was pretty bummed out about that one. If those girls had a wool blanket, sleeping bags, or coats they'd have been cold, but alive. Amjad Skills said, I imagine it would be one of the hardest things of being in emergency response, seeing all the deaths and injuries that could have been completely preventable with an easy fix. S10 said, actually you get used to it really fast. Because absolutely no victim in history woke up and thought today's the day I'm going to have to fight for my life. People who anticipate dangers mitigate them because of course they do. They see the threat and respond. Every victim I've ever seen never saw it coming. As ridiculous as that sounds, it's true. You hear I didn't think. Or I didn't see. A lot. So I'm a firefighter. I can't unsee the things I've seen. I have a smoke detector and carbon monoxide detector in every room. Extinguishers mounted at every exit door. And because it'll be a cold day in hell before I'm the firefighter who loses his kids to a fire, I have a 5-gallon water extinguisher next to my bed. My 3-year-old is already trained on what to do when the fire alarm goes off. Won't bet someday I'll be looking at my phone walking to get the trash can and get crushed by a passing car? Or heart attack? All I know is fire isn't going to get me. I have its number and trained to see it coming a mile away. But that's only just one thing out of the billions of things that might get you. And I'll never see it coming. Jack Sonaya said, as a nurse I can tell you, prepare for everything and still get fucked by cruelty. Just buckle up and enjoy the ride. None of us are getting out alive. Amjad Skills said, oh absolutely, I know you can't plan for the multitudes of freak accidents or anything like that, I just meant simple things, like the comment above with the girls in bikini tops who froze to death. Maybe just a jacket could have saved their lives. Or the hold my beer stunts where someone does something stupid, like you said, I just didn't think, ... It's just sad to me. Obviously these people don't mean to die or lose a leg, but just one little thing changed their lives forever. I work in an outpatient therapy clinic and we just started seeing a patient who slipped while dancing in her kitchen because she didn't realize someone had just mopped and she shattered her jaw. I guess like you say you get used to it in your line of work, but it still blows my mind. I could never do what you do, so thank you for keeping the rest of us idiots safe. Camped Cronny said, I live in a desert community near Death Valley. One summer maybe 10 years ago, a woman and her 11-year-old son were traveling a 30-mile stretch of desert between the main town and a smaller nearby town when her car died. There was and is still no cell service on the road, and I guess no one stopped to help, so they ended up stranded. They were only stranded for a few hours, but it was 120°F and they didn't have water. The son quickly succumbed to heat stroke and died. Ever since that happened, I have packed a day's supply of fresh water for each person in the car before any trip out of town. I have my normal emergency kit as well, but the water is something I have to be mindful of because I can't keep it stored in my car, especially in the summer months. No amount of technology or modern connectivity can replace good preparation for emergencies. Blue said, I lived in a town just outside of Death Valley. It was summer and I was in a small shop in town when some European folks came in saying they were headed to Death Valley and were each buying a 16-ounce water bottle for the trip. Both the shop owner and myself told them please buy at least 3 gallons per person. They looked at us lean we were crazy. Bliss said, yep. White Sands, New Mexico is an extremely easy hike across beautiful white sand dunes. You can even go barefoot as long as you're wearing a hat, but a European tourist or two has died from the heat almost every year since 2015. The rare deaths before that were also of people from other countries or regions of the U.S. Wyman Personality said, another good thing that doesn't really help with all accidents but can help some is some form of no perishable not quickly perishable comfort food, like potato chips and granola bars. Shock is a serious possibility in an accident and you may need something to help jumpstart you back into drive. Some form of easy-to-swallow digestible that is familiar can really help with that. I always have a few granola bars and snack-sized Original A's in my glove box plus center console and there's usually a box bag of both in my trunk too. Sadly you can only keep the Dips bars in the winter because they'll probably melt in the summer but I also really like the Nature Valley Crunch one so I didn't have any issue with it. Campbell Chunky Cyst said, remember, folks, if you have to run your engine to stay warm, don't do it inside a garage and make sure the tailpipe is clear and unblocked. A bunch of Texans just died because they were new to this piece of information. If you have a snowstorm emergency kit, print that out and put it on top so you can't miss it and can't forget it. The Hyperionite YT said, a fire extinguisher. About 2 years ago I was in the car with my parents when all of a sudden the gears stopped responding and smoke starting coming out of the front and back. We parked on the side of the road, opened the front and a piece, I think it was the battery, was burning. It was only put out because a man who was passing by riding a motorcycle quickly stopped, took off his jacket, soaked it in water from a bottle that he had with him, and covered the fire with it. Turns out he was an ex-fireman. You probably shouldn't always count on being that lucky. Justanatheridatu said, you got really, really lucky. You're very unable to put out a vehicle fire if your car catches on fire and you're unlikely to really even be able to open the hood. Usually if a car lights on fire, it's gone. They are more useful if someone else has a crash and their car lights on fire. If you catch an accident right after it happens you can potentially put out a fire caused by the accident. This allows correctly trained people to extract the occupants of the other car instead of dragging them out and possibly harming or killing them in the process. Noshdosh said, I carry a bat that has a flashlight in the end. It also has a pulsing light feature to blind attackers. And then the bat part to whack attackers. Beanwin Sad Life said, surprised I had to scroll so far for this. Blankets are important if you break down in a cold rural location, but also if you get too lit at the party you can sleep it off before driving home. Update, looks like folks are saying you can get arrested for sleeping in your car. Please avoid getting a DUI by using your car blanket to make a blanket fort. If the cops don't know the secret password you have no legal obligation to let them into your blanket fort, probably. P.S. Be aware of your local statutes. IX40MM said, we had 2 DDs, pregnant wives, but we had left the headlights on so it was dead by the time we got back. We called a cab but it could only take 4 of the 7 so my buddy and I were left with the dead van while the 2 sober drivers drove to go get a car so they could jump the van and drive it back. Cops found us passed out spooning in the back. Took the keys off of me and said that we were being charged with a DUI. I thought it would all be okay when they couldn't start a car with the keys but the fuckers still charged us and it took months before we could see a judge who did end up throwing the whole thing out. Bunch of assholes. Rick North said, Depending on the weather, the car would be too cold. The alcohol would make the cold worse as it stops your body from reducing the blood flow to extremities. Also, if you have your keys, you can still get a DUI as you are in control on the vehicle. Edit, fixed a typo. Abwin said. It depends on where you're sleeping. In the driver's seat? Decent, you'll get a DUI, especially if it's running. If you're in the passenger seat or the back, you can make a believable argument that you were using the car for shelter and sleeping it off. If you're in the driver's seat, then it's easy to argue that you were so drunk that you passed out before you could leave. Add in sitting in the passenger seat wrapped up in a blanket, and it's even harder to argue that you were going to drive drunk. D-mailer said. I spent about 10 minutes searching for a spare on my Toyota Sienna. I finally discovered that I have run flats, which was nice as far as not having to deal with changing the tire in the dark and the cold. Not as nice when I had to pay for new tires. What confused me was the fact that I have the scissors jack. They put run flats on it because a donut won't work with the odd and they're too cheap to give you a full-size spare, but somehow it's not too expensive to give you the stupid scissors jack that you'll never need. Dika Channa said. Other condom facts in case anyone here actually had the opportunity to a condom. Keeping condoms in your wallet purse makes them degrade faster. Replace them every 3 months, I think. Lipsticks and balms can also make them less effective too. P0 Sid of Outlook said. My Polish colleague told my British colleague that when lockdown ends he'll go to the Alps. The British colleague said Foskin. And the Polish guy said sorry, what? So the British guy repeated, fair skiing holiday, ... He then got up and mimed skiing. My Romanian colleague said, in a thick accent, I'm Romanian and I speak better English than you. Inside Copy said. More vehicles should come with built-in cameras as standard. I've seen a few posts of Teslas with their 360-degree camera coverage and it's absolutely incredible. Total peace of mind. Unless you're a terrible driver, I guess, then it'd suck. Hadunit22 said. I don't get why insurance companies aren't adding incentives for having them. It saves their ass more than anyone else. Also, yes, car manufacturers should have them built into every new car. Backup cameras are already required. Wouldn't require much extra work to add a front camera and storage system for the data. Introvert Petrolhead said. You get one for fairly cheap and the one I have also comes with a built-in seatbelt cutter at the bottom end. I hope I'm never in a situation where I need to use it, but knowing I have it in my car gives me some sort of tranquility, lol. Lee Science next said. I keep a dildo on the end of the gear shifter to deal with the road rage. Nothing will make an over-aggressive road rager back off like seeing a grown man straddling the center console of a Nissan Micra interfering with himself. Sex the Peasant said. I keep toilet paper in my car. Initially it was just something I figured I was likely to forget camping. Then COVID hit. Americans panicked and bought out all the toilet paper. I ran out before stores had finally restocked. Then I remembered the roll in the car. It absolutely saved my week.